You're listening to the Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio that was recorded at a discussion panel at DragonCon 2025. Please consider backing us at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment for early access to these podcasts and other perks.
And I have 1 o'clock, so good morning, DragonCon!
Like
you can always tell the day 3 energy. Let's try this again. Who is not in the dealer's room line? Good morning, DragonCon! Welcome to day 3 in your last 25 hours of all this excitement. You have a lot to do and little time to do it in. Welcome to Silo, a fan discussion panel. A couple quick housekeeping items. First and foremost, the DragonCon charity this year is NAMI. That's National Association for Mental Illness. I will get it right before the end of this week, don't worry. They do a lot of good work for people with mental illness, support structure, things like that. Anyway, so this is an audience participation panel, so we will expect to get commentary and questions. Please raise your hand. And my lovely assistant Paige in the back there, who's ignoring me, will have a hand on mic and get you and make sure you have a chance to ask your question.
I'm not ignoring you.
It looked like you were hiding, actually, to be honest.
Just for right now.
She's a shy retiring flower.
I am Michael Frost. I am a, 12 to 13 year, to 2014 veteran of the Apocalypse Rising track, fan of all things end of the world. As a matter of fact, a few times I've tried to help bring it about, but apparently don't have that kind of power yet. Working on it. And my panelists are...
Hi, my name is Aaron Dunne. Michael is a sweet, sweet summer child. This is my 34th DragonCon. My 27th as a staffer. Yeah,
that's a big applause.
I plan to expire on the last day on the con sometime in the not too near future. Love Silo. I have not read the books. My philosophy on shows that are based on books is you watch the show first, then go back and read the book. There's always more detail. It's just a change in the medium. That's the way to do it. So I love it. That's why I'm here. I'm a fan like you.
You are far more patient than I am, because my thing is, if I start a TV show and find out there's books, especially a series that's finished, I'm like, all right, well, there goes the next, week or 2 or 3 of my life, depending on how many books there are, because I'm going to finish these books probably before I even finish the first season of this show. Anyway, sorry guys, my name is Tara. You can find me across the web at Geek Saga. This is my 14th DragonCon. I do count 2020 because I did virtual panels for the convention. Yeah, I'm a podcaster and an author, and I do love Silo, and yes, obviously I have read the books.
I think a great place to pick up is the people in the front row that came here early, by the way, got a few spoilers, a little bit, a few side discussions, shall we say. So I think let's just dive right into it. Being the two of us have not read the books, we have 2 more seasons coming. They're filming them together. The original author actually is writing some of those episodes, or I think technically has written a couple already. I think they're already far enough in. So let's just go right into it. What are we expecting out of season 3?
Season 3 is going to be basically the second book, which was, I understand, entirely a flashback which explained all the circumstances that came to the creation of the silo, the history that the characters in the first 2 seasons largely are unaware of. And we started to see that with that last scene that we had set in what looked like present-day Washington, D.C. with the congressman and the reporter.
Yeah.
That sounds like the beginning of a really bad joke. And I've heard a very interesting theory about those 2 people and the fact that we had the Pez dispenser. So I don't know. Tara, do you want to jump in and do your thing before I start going into that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, I agree. Obviously, we had that flashback at the very end of season 2. So I do think it's going to be mostly second book stuff. But that said, in the second book, there's basically nothing in current time Silo, right? You don't really see hardly anything at all from like Juliet and Solo and all the people in Walker, all the people in Silo 18. So I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to exactly to the book, because they're not going to set aside these major actors for an entire season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play that out, because a lot of the issues I have with season 2 had to do with the pacing and the jumping back and forth, and like, here's 30 seconds of Julia climbing a stairwell. Wait, let's go back to Silo 18 and see what's going on there. So I'm hoping they do a better job with the back and forth between the past stuff, both the past stuff from Silo 17 and 18 that I'm sure we're going to see more of, and Silo 1 stuff and Washington DC stuff, and then also still seeing Juliet and them without it being as choppy as it was in season 2.
So did you feel that the pacing was better in season 1?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's interesting. My friend of mine who's read all the books, she really didn't like season 1 because she felt that the pacing was so slow. She was much happier with season 2, but everyone has a different opinion on that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are people who liked it. And I guess like maybe pacing isn't quite the right word. It's just the best one I've come to think of. Yeah, balance is certainly that, but also like pacing, yes, because it's not even necessarily that it was too slow. Like I said, it's like here's 30 seconds of this, and then we're going to jump over here, and it's like you almost forget what's going on where, because it's just jumping back and forth and back and forth, and very choppy, and it just felt, all of a sudden it's too fast and it's like too slow. So, you know.
I don't think it was so much of a pacing issue, but by season 2, it felt very much like watching an NFL game. Oh, we have a television timeout, so let's fill airtime. So, Terry, tell me about that time you played on that team in the other city 40 years ago, and you had played just like this. It was almost like we weren't sure we needed to remind you that Juliet's still climbing the stairs. Okay, now back to you, Al. Where season 1 didn't have that dilemma as much, because we weren't doing so much of we're over here, we're over here, we're over here, we're over here. I think a good way they could stay true to the book is almost exclusively flashback, is use a lot of where Aaron Sorkin writes flashbacks into his scripts, is it'll be somebody thinking about something or reading about something for like maybe 12, 15 seconds, and then boom, right into what we need to know. Right.
Interesting point, though, about this, and I feel like I have been following Hugh for a really long time, and I think what's really interesting about this series is that it was actually originally published online, and he put it out in pieces.
Short stories.
Yeah, and it was pieces of that. There was actually in the very, very beginning, it was literally, he would put it out, you would literally comment on it, and he would like edit it in front of you. Like that was legitimately how that started. And like I remember finding it online when he quit his corporate job and decided to be an author, and met him here years ago. It's probably been 10 years or something like that. My badge is signed.
He was here last year, I believe.
Yeah,
he was over now.
I was really sad, but I've gotten to have like lunch with him and stuff. But it's interesting, like the pacing. As someone who watched that part of it, it kind of reminded me a lot of actually how that came out, where you really got everything in snippets. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like I thought it was actually really interesting, because if you'd only read the book.
And I think that works a lot better in writing too. I also will say, like Hugh, Howey, he's also fairly active like on the subreddit sometimes and stuff too. He's really, really great with fans. He's really appreciative of everything. So I love that about an author.
Yeah, I was wondering, I know that the pacing thing for season 2 was like I didn't have that big of a problem with it, but I definitely understand where everyone's coming from. I was wondering, like, if people in the room or you guys on the panel, if it made a difference if you like binged it straight through, or if it was like the week to week that kind of made it feel like the pacing was slower. And then I do think that, like, to me anyway, Juliet is the most compelling character, and to have her kind of just not have as meaty of a story as she had in season 1, where it was just sort of like, I gotta get back here, and that was the whole story. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I was kind of wondering if like the binge model affected that, the way people felt about the pacing.
My friend who I watch it with, I suspect she had already binge watched it, and then watching it again with me, she was kind of reinforcing for her. I only saw it like a couple of episodes a week, and that might have been, and it's also, I think she was more concerned about the pacing as related to how it was unfolding in the book. So maybe it may not have been the pacing of the episode itself, but just that comparison, which I kept telling her, look, it's a different medium. Of course it's going to run a different thing. Come on, you should know better. That's my thought on that there, sorry.
I mean, I watched it week to week. I do think that is part of the issue, because I heard from somebody who got screeners that was able to binge it, that it was a lot easier to handle things. And I'm like, again, like I said, I do think pacing is an issue, but I think someone over here said balance is, and that thank you, and that is probably an even better description of like my personal issues with it. And I don't think that being able to binge it would have made a difference in that. So.
And me personally, I binged it. I went straight through in about a week. Less of a pacing and more of a quick, let's remind us what's going on over here, and then back again. So I think the pacing issues probably have more to do with how you watch, and also, again, whether you had read the books or not read the books. Having not read the books, I needed to know, why is she over in Silo 18? What is going on in Silo 18? Who is this guy? What's going on?
Be a little defensive of the makers. I think they had an impossible task because the story went to physical different directions and added all these extra layers. If you look at the plot points in the first season, I think they would wrap up and move on to a new one, wrap up, move on, and they would come to stay together. Here they kind of kept diverging in ways that I found interesting. I don't know how they could have, I think there was places where they could have cut back and forth more effectively, but that was probably a production issue at that point too.
Editing. Because
it's like, okay, because I even heard from them when, on the second season, they had to film chunks of it and then bring people to do things that were cut together. It was real hard because of the completely different locations.
And there was also, there was quite a bit of scenes of, Julia underwater and stuff like that. And those scenes take a while and quite a bit of resources to film. So I think, everyone's going to have their own feeling about it. It's, completely justified because, what you're looking for and what you're comfortable with in pacing, that's totally yours. So I doubt that you're ever going to get a consensus on that, if it was good or bad in terms of pacing and intensity. I was just fortunate I found both seasons, I was like, yeah, more, please. Thank you, more, Tandy.
And also something else to remember is in the middle of those productions, I don't remember exactly the timing of the fact it was in 23. Remember, we're just coming out of the pandemic, they're just getting back on their feet. There's a project that, let us all remember, as you pointed out, this has gone back 10 years. He originally sold this deal as a movie, 2011, 2014,
yeah.
And then it languished all the way through the pandemic, and then all of a sudden, Apple and I think AMC Productions was involved in this at some point, stepped and went, no, we're going to make a series out of it.
Better call.
Yeah, you know what, I think it leads itself better to an anthology because of the way he wrote it, the way it started out. And as somebody pointed out over here, he is one of the true e-Kindle self-publishing success stories. I mean, he did this on his own from the ground up. And here it is, it's now an IP that's been sold to a major studio. But in the middle of the production of seasons 1 and 2, we had the writer's strike. So you don't know how much of this was, we had to film here, then we had to stop. Then we had to pick up over here, and we edited it in as best we can. I think we'll see less of the jumping around with 3 and 4 being done together. Season 3 and 4 and the new book, well, not new, but the book it's based on. So now, what do we expect to see when we see the backstory? Again, spoiler, the pre-conversation, shall we say. I remember seeing the picture was in the book, I think it was Stone Mountain, right up the road here from Atlanta. So I'm just waiting to find out that I'm sitting where Silo 18 will be.
It's above us.
I think I remember the other thing. 50 silos, somebody said, I think in season 2.
Apparently there's reference to an operation, to a Project 50.
Yeah.
And they did mention, I think it was Solo. Solo gave Rebecca some scrap of paper that had written down that they had created 50 silos, and they'd also
and then
created
there's the one that runs everything. I think is what I don't know if he knows. I can't remember if he knows that yet, but that's what I'm the references to.
So 50 times 10,000 people. What's the population of Metropolitan Atlanta again? Refresh my memory. Isn't it right around half a million?
A couple of million. Depending on where you measure it.
All right, not all of us are going to survive. Spoiler alert, we already know that all of us are going to survive, and my theory is right.
I'm Irish, I'm part cockroach, I'll survive.
Now, those who want to be one of the lucky 10% apparently, our panels next door, homesteading, how to survive the apocalypse, you're in the right place.
I don't know if that's going to help you if there's poisonous nanobots in the air killing everybody.
There goes my hope.
There have been some interesting theories. I did hear a very interesting one, kind of intricate, and I was like, well, somebody did the research on this. The flashback scene that we saw at the end of season 2, where the newly elected congressman for Georgia's 15th district, which apparently doesn't exist. We don't have one yet. So apparently, at some point, the population of Georgia rose enough that they had to create another one. Or maybe, as the guy said, the people who were writing the scene just didn't have their geography great. Could happen. He meets with this reporter who he thinks he has a date with. Sneaky reporter, but hey. And he meets her, And he tells her that, he served in the Army Corps of Engineers and he's got a master's in engineering. So he's not just another politician. The Army Corps of Engineers is frequently involved in things like maintaining levees down in New Orleans, emergencies and floods, heavy-duty, massive construction projects. And when he gave her the Pez dispenser, apparently the college that she told him she came from in the course of their conversation, the mascot for that college is a duck. So he'd already obviously done some research. He was thinking he was having a date. It was a nice little thing to do. And the theory is that when the silos are created, he's going to be intimately involved with the creation of the silos. The two of them are actually going to have a relationship. They will be one of the first sets of people to go into the silo when the time comes. And they brought the Pez dispenser as a memento of their first date. Interesting thought. Don't know if we're going to find if there's going to be anything to that, but it kind of hangs together.
And all of a sudden, I just created a Fallout Silo crossover. By the way, I copyrighted it right before I said it.
Not my thing, but I think I give credit to the guy who wrote it on the internet. But I think it's an interesting proposition.
The authors love to do that. They'll throw that in there, and then at the very end, they'll show like a shop that sells Pez dispensers. You know what I mean? Like he built this whole theory for him, and then he's like, here it is right here.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything major from the books, but I will say I think that some of that, what you're saying, is pretty legit. Mm-hmm. Some of it maybe not, but also, for anybody who has read the books, they changed some things already, and things are going to continue to change, but we also know that Hugh is pretty involved with the show, so I'm not super worried about, I don't think we're going to get some Game of Thrones nonsense or anything like that. I don't want to spoil anything, right. So I don't want to say too much about your theory.
He has finished the book, so right. It's not like I'm still working on them.
So I know, because you finished the book, we already know we are getting 2 more seasons, and that is it. I haven't heard any rumors of them trying to do spin-offs or anything like that, thank God. I think that would ruin the story something fierce to get that askew.
I'm pretty sure he's writing a new Silo trilogy. So
really,
yeah. So I'm there's always a chance of an additional show. But I will say I do like that we are getting 4 seasons and only 4 seasons. I was a little worried they were going to keep splitting the future books into more than one season, and I do think that part of the balance and pacing issues with season 2 was that a lot of Juliet's stuff was just time waste. Like, we can't not have Juliet on screen pretty often because she's like the main character and everybody likes her. Well, most people seem to like her. But the whole point was at the end to get her back to Silo 18. You could tell where they were going with it, but they just had way too much time to do it. But they had so much other stuff to tell, too, that they couldn't necessarily have fewer episodes. But the future books, I think that would have been a lot to try to stretch out.
Well, let's hear from Juliet herself.
So on that note, having read the books, do you feel like 2 more seasons will be enough to give credit to what's left in the story?
I think so, yeah. Because again, I don't know that they really could have truncated season 2, but I do think that they had to spend too much time on Juliet trying to get out of Silo 17 and back to Silo 18. And I also think that there's some stuff that lends itself well to the page with all the flashback stuff that I'm hoping that they don't feel the need to put it. There's some book 2 stuff that I'm just like, I don't love book 2, so.
There's always a drastic editing process you have to do when you take something, even if it's novella size, and put it into a script for a TV show. Any Doctor Who fans out there? Remember, if you remember the target novelizations of Doctor Who stories, a 6-episode Doctor Who story was that thick in a paperback novel. Yeah. If you have a regular-sized novel that you're turning into a movie or a TV show, you've got more time. You have a bit more leeway with what you decide to lead in, what you decide to take out, what characters you might have to eliminate or combine into each other to do the same functions in the story. So I think that probably with the experience of season 1 and season 2, they've got, okay, now we know how we can do this and what we need to put in and what we can leave out. And this happened off screen, and then move on, rather than showing everything.
And a couple of good examples there. We were just talking about action world building yesterday. is how many pages it takes to build something in a book that I can do in 30 seconds on screen. But you look at the size of Stephen King's The Stand, 1,300 pages by the time we were done, or The Road, the original novel The Road, to get us a 2-hour movie. And there was a lot they took out when they did the movie again the first time. Or The Postman. You look at The Postman, we all made the joke about yet another Kevin Costner 3-hour epic, but that movie should have been 9 hours long if you factor in everything that was in that book.
So that's why we're really fortunate that we're getting a TV show rather than a movie. The movie, unless you've got to do a trilogy of movies, and let's face it, they're not that common, especially 10 years ago. It's a lot less common than now.
Oh yeah, we're really lucky that
yeah.
HBO and AMC took chances on The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, because that's gotten us so much great genre TV.
Yeah.
They, people are like, oh, this can be successful. We didn't know that there were so many nerds out there.
Everyone in Hollywood wants to be second.
Yeah.
Because the first guys have to prove that they got raised the money, and then once they've pulled it off, they're like, oh, well, we've seen we can do this. Now we'll do our project. So yes.
Never afraid to be first. Never be afraid to speak out in a meeting. Remember, somewhere at Sci-Fi Channel, almost 20 years ago, somebody rose their hand and said, "Bear with me a minute. Hear me out. A tornado full of sharks."
What courage. What courage that person had.
What artistic integrity.
Or then there's also like Cocaine Bear. Like we got so many ridiculous things because of that.
So many actors got trips to East.
Just going back to the Pez dispenser, like I haven't read the books yet, so like seeing it in the silo with the duck head, and then that final scene, like getting the meaning of the duck head. But is there also something into the design of the Pez dispenser that is kind of like a shaft with Pez levels, that goes down? Is that almost like a hidden meaning too in that action? That it's like I'm building these.
I think it was just like a little Easter egg sort of thing. I don't think there's some sort of really deep meaning behind it necessarily, but you're right. And I had that same thought too, because he could have given her a squeaky duck or like 10 million other different duck things, but a Pez dispenser, at least from what I remember, there's not any specific thing about the Pez dispenser, but I do think it was just them giving us that little Easter egg,
And sometimes a Pez dispenser is just a Pez dispenser. we may find like there's some anonymous 9-year-old wanders into the silo with a Pez dispenser in his pocket, and we're like, oh, that's what it was.
And I'm old enough to remember that is what a Pez dispenser worked like.
Right.
So my question is about the judge. I was really shocked when the judge was killed, especially considering she wanted to leave, so she's not going to be a problem. She's going away. So I wanted to know your opinions on, was it a good strategy for the judge to get killed, or should he have just let the judge leave?
Personally, I think it reinforced the ruthlessness of Bernard.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, there was intimations that he and the judge had a relationship when she worked in IT. And she was even supposed to be his shadow. And I'm thinking, this might be me filling in gaps here. I think that when she became his shadow and she got to a certain point and certain things were made known to her, she was like, holy crap, no, I can't go along with this. So they shunted her into being the judge, which looks like it's a powerful position, but as Sims found out, is absolutely nothing. It's a corner seat. So I think Bernard was afraid that she may tell somebody before she went out, or that they couldn't figure out a cover story, why the judge would want to go out and clean. So it's much easier for her to die of a tragic heart attack and then frame somebody else for it.
Yeah. But I think a little bit of it was, like you said, reinforcing his ruthlessness. I think some of it was also just Bernard trying to clean up everything he can while he can. One thing I wanted to talk about, and since we're talking about Judge Meadows, there's this whole thing where she has this thing about kids. There's she's always I don't know, she's looking at things with kids. She's tired. I don't know. So there was that time when she disappeared for 4 days, which happened just before she quit being in IT, being Bernard's shadow. And because she seems to be kind of obsessed with anything to do with children. There are theories that she either, trigger warning here, she either had an abortion or possibly lost a baby. There's more widely accepted theories that involve her exploring parts of the silo she wasn't supposed to know about, or even possibly making it to another silo. I don't think she got so far as making it to another silo, but I think that between like personal history, the possibility that she knows stuff that might cause, because he doesn't want another Juliet who like walks off into the sunset, right? So I think that he needed to sweep all of her under the rug, and he probably felt like he should have done it a long time ago, but only now has like the power, the ability, and also the scapegoats to do so.
To your point about her being obsessed, certainly have a great interest. I'm probably putting the word obsessed in. I'm sorry if I'm projecting that.
I kind of said it too, so that's how I've kind of read into it.
You know, in this society, the ability to have a family is very tightly controlled. Mm-hmm. It's very tightly controlled. If you win the lottery, you have a year to conceive. Now, if you don't make it in them 365 days, tough. Not all, most women have a biological drive to have children. So it makes a lot of sense that, you know, first of all, if we didn't see any indication she ever actually had a partner. So you seem to have an official partner to be eligible for the lottery, so to speak. So she may have never met somebody, but she still had that natural desire to have children. But because of the society she's living in, it was denied to her.
Yeah.
So it could just be that, and I say just, but that would be a very hard burden for a lot of people to bear. My thoughts?
I think back to Bernard for a minute, is that you both intimated on this. How well did it work out letting Juliet walk away? How well did that solve the problem? And again, we already know that there are tunnels connecting the silos, or at least somebody believes there is, because there's been talks about the maps, that somebody found the access points. So Judge Meadows, in her younger years, was that obsessed and found them. She may have even more information that destabilized everything, even more so than Juliet or Sims even has.
Yeah.
I know the story needs a sense of mystery, but it seems like with the long history of the silos, they're completely unaware of their history. And if there's any speculation on why that was so, because even if they had a little idea of why they're there, they wouldn't have these revolutions cycling every so often.
They give them like amnesia-inducing drugs every time something big and bad happens. I'm guessing they did that. I can't exactly recall if they stated it outright in the show about like when they first, like literally when they first filled the silo with people. But my guess is they gave they all got the amnesia-inducing stuff in the water or the air or whatever as soon as they entered the silo, and then every time there's like a little uprising that they either quell or that causes, like, you know, what happened in Silo 17, it's just either everybody dies or the remaining people get that amnesia-inducing drug again. And there's also like a whole thing about, I'm pretty sure it's in the water, because they talked about the water supply quite a bit. And
I forgot what episode it was mentioned, but it actually was mentioned that after the last uprising.
Yeah.
Is when Quinn started putting the drug in the water. Yeah. Because they got tired of going through this every 20 years.
Yeah. And like Billings, I'm pretty sure it's Billings who has the syndrome, like the shaking thing. Yeah. The theory, and I'm honestly fairly certain this is correct, is that the drugs that they put in the water, like the amnesia-inducing drugs, they just affect some people. Like some people just, their body makeup causes them to react to it that way, and that's what causes the syndrome. So I think that's a really cool little tidbit too.
I was really excited to see Solo, and I was like really interested to see like how that was gonna translate on screen. I'm interested to kind of hear y'all's opinions, because you're familiar with the material, and then you haven't seen it previously in the books. What was your sort of like reception of that character? Because I think that's probably my personal favorite character in the series.
I know that there were some people who only watched the show who were like, what the heck is, like, because he's hard to like, I think, at first in the show. And so I know there were quite a few people who were show watchers only who were like, ugh, who is this guy? Why? But I mean, I think they did a good job with it, because they kept the like mystery of him going. I think that was one of the better things that happened in Silo 17, honestly, in season 2, is how they handled his character. And I really love Steve Zahn. I think he was a perfect choice. I love like his voice and everything. It's like that soft spoken, but then when he gets angry, he looks real scary. I think he was an awesome choice in general, and also he's doing a really good job with it. So yeah, I like Solo a lot too.
They did a very, very good job of establishing Solo almost from the get-go as an unreliable reporter. you didn't know to what extent anything he was saying was true. And I think they pretty soon established that that wasn't his name, and Juliet kind of started, pulling the threads from there. But once you get his backstory, he's a very sympathetic character. This is a child who was locked away in a room at a very young age and told, don't come out or you'll be killed. And he's left to grow up without any parents, and, he's feral to a great extent. And he's obviously got PTSD. And he doesn't want Juliet to leave, obviously, because this is the first person he's been able to communicate with who wasn't trying to kill him. The other survivors from the silo, they're like, oh, you killed our parents when they were trying to break in and kill you and take your supplies. And so we're going to kill you. So it's really not surprising the way he reacts to Juliet initially, but when he realizes she's not there to threaten him, he wants, no, I want you, your company, you're somebody I can talk to. So I think they did a great job with that.
I will say, I think Juliet's interactions with Solo prove that she is not one of those women who would have been sad about not winning that child lottery.
No.
She is so mean to him. Like, wait, the lack of patience and how nasty she is. Like, I get that she's in a really stressful, frustrating situation, but like, she's so mean to him in the beginning, and then she's like, well, now I need your help, so I guess I'll be like a little bit nicer. And I don't think it was played wrong or anything, but man, it was like, girl, stop being so mean. Like, this poor kid, come on.
Yeah, her number comes up, put that right back where you found it.
You could see her stopping.
Yeah,
10. Okay, we'll try it your way, you great big mountain of a
All right, we have a question in the back here.
I have two comments backtracking, unfortunately, a little bit. One was about Billings syndrome, which I had personally interpreted because I think if it was just a side effect of the medication or whatever, they'd be less concerned about it. And the way that I took it was that it was a form of psychosis from how deeply unnatural it is for people to live in that environment and what that might result in behavior-wise, why they actually care. And then the other kind of comment, question, concern was backtracking way back to Bernard and the judge. I got the feeling, I agree that of course Bernard is callous and cruel, but I got the vibe that he was really like into her, that he loved her, that he kind of wanted a future with her, and I think he was, at least the way I saw it and read it, was that he was traumatized by how, I think he felt like his hand was forced by what Sims had done. And that killing her might not actually have been part of his plan, and maybe he was planning on letting her go, but his duty to the silo as a whole resulted in him having to do what he did to her. And I got the feeling, of all Bernard's cruelty and whatnot, that was a slightly humanizing moment for him, that he seemed actually really sad about having to have done that.
Those are very valid points.
Yeah.
And, unless we get Bernard has a soliloquy.
Soliloquy. That's too much of a word for Sunday Dragon Con.
He gets to talk about himself. It's going to be hard to know what was in his mind there. That's a perfectly valid theory.
What about the AI?
Ooh.
What about the AI?
The AI.
Do they call it the algorithm?
Legacy.
The legacy.
Yeah, I didn't think it was AI. I thought it was.
AI.
Yeah. Okay.
ChatGPT Mark 20. With all the same errors still there.
Skynet Jr. I think there seemed to me, if I recall correctly, there was a moment when Bernard suddenly acted like he was broken, like something happened, and he's like, I'm going to go outside, which is very strange for a guy who 10 minutes before, he was the guy calling all the shots, and he was the secret master behind the scenes of the silo. And my theory is he discovered that he's not calling any shots whatsoever. There's an AI is controlling everything, and he's just a puppet like the judge was. And that's a heavy load to take if you think you're making all these big decisions and you're killing people and not letting other people be
including
born.
People you care about.
Including people you care about.
I thought it was explicit that he was dealing with the legacy.
Right, but I don't know if he thought that
the legacy told him, hey, I'm going to kill everybody in the silo.
Yeah, is that the reason why he said I'm going to outside? It was something the legacy did last episode.
He found out.
Yeah.
He put it all together.
Right.
Well, he learned from the other guy who told, but he put it all together.
Right.
That he had no power.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. He realized And then it's like, well...
No, I think it was more that. I think his theory, and it's not said, don't get me wrong, it's my theory, the final episode. His theory is that he already knows what the Legacy's about to do. The Legacy's made that decision. He's still thinking it's just enough power. If he goes out and cleans, maybe his death will convince everybody not to revolt, and maybe the Legacy will back down. It's not said, it's not implied, it's just how I read the situation, because, he is a megalomaniac, but he does believe he is the best interest of society. He believes his sole function is to keep 10,000 people alive. Yeah. Granted, he may be a little wrong in this, but he is megalomaniac enough to think that's his power.
I thought it was explicit that the director of IT always knows about the algorithm. That's why the judge walked away in the beginning, was when she was taken down to the tunnel, she met the algorithm, and she was so freaked out by what it said that she abandoned the post entirely. So if that was the case, A, Bernard knows about it because he sent her there, and B, he went through the same process when he became the director of IT. So he's known about it the whole time.
Yeah.
I lean more towards what you said, but that he either was told he's failed in his grand mission of saving a silo through whatever means necessary, and so he's given up, gone nihilistic, and he's going to go outside and kill himself. Or maybe he's going to do a last-ditch thing to try and turn it all around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah, that's where I stand with it too, honestly.
It's funny that you build this, intensely complicated, self-supporting survival system for, 10,000 people, and you build a self-destruct system into it. Not something you normally find.
See, that's really the fear I'm hoping gets explained. Is exactly what you just brought up. And that's been back in my head going back to when I first learned about the self-destruct system. Whatever catastrophic fiasco happened outside, even if we're going to go full-on Fallout here in the middle of all this, what could be so bad about people ever getting out of the silo before your pre-planned day, especially 350 plus years in the future, that we need to kill them to keep them from coming outside?
They get into one of the other 49.
Well, no, because they died. We already know they died a minute to get outside. Because that happened with 17?
There's supposed to be links that IT has that they can communicate between the silos. This system, it's very, very rigid. It's very controlling. And I understand why it would be. Because if you've got 10,000 people cooped up in a giant cylinder and they can't get out, humans don't react very well to that. You have to keep them under a tight leash. You can't allow any deviation, because if you let it go before you know what's happened, you get Silo 17 and all 10,000 people are dead. Maybe there's some factor they're thinking that if somebody takes over and is able to start communicating with the rest of the silos, the problem could metastasize and you could lose everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of with that.
You only want them to survive if they're on your side.
That's kind of where I was going with this, yeah.
I haven't read the books, I only watched the show, but I would say to answer your question, it's all about control. Whoever is in Silo 1, they just want to be able to control everyone. And whatever the future of humanity is, again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know where it's all going. I'm excited to see. But it's all about knowing how to control the population and making sure they're doing what you want them to do, when you want them to do it, and be able to control all those different variables. And if some people, if they come out the silos too early, they're not going to be able to control them.
We talked about Fallout and Silo a little bit. We kind of touched on the fact that Fallout came out long before Silo, and it seems to be heavily inspired by. So, presuming most people in this room have also watched Fallout Season 1, I had been kind of going on the same thing that's happening with the silos, or not silos, the vaults 31, 2, and 3, where it's a eugenics program, and the goal is to get one silo that in the end is going to be allowed to come out and repopulate the earth. That's my theory as a non-book reader.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me in the door.
Who says that they are ever going to go out? Maybe the plan is they always stay in the silos.
We don't know the nature of what's killing people out there. We know it's not radiation because it kills them too quickly. It doesn't kill them instantly because we saw that there were people who got out of 17 and they managed to get a distance from the door before they dropped, and they weren't wearing suits. It seems to be some kind of persistent chemical, which kind of screams some kind of chemical weapon.
Someone said there was a wind that came that triggered everybody dying. That they were outside and doing fine, and then a big wind came. That's in the show.
That's again. That's an example of Solo being an unreliable reporter because he was a kid at the time, and he wouldn't have been able.
But we go back to the Easter egg.
Not to contradict what you're saying.
I agree.
But
we go back to the Easter egg. This all started with Iran letting loose a dirty bomb somewhere on U.S. soil. Supposedly, admittedly. But a big wind, the people would live long enough to die of something else, could be a bomb with another chemical agent in it, not radiation, obviously, but think World War I battlefields. They'd make it up out of the trench, maybe 100 yards, and drop it out in the middle of the open.
But those type of chemical weapons, it would take a heck of a lot of them to saturate the entire United States. To the,
Good point, yeah.
and be persistent. This is not something that we have in the arsenal at the moment. If it is, they're keeping it very, 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 very tightly under wraps. It's a doomsday thing.
Tell you.
It's bioweapon.
I have no access because they're like, no, you figure out how to use it.
I have a friend I just retired from NASA. That was his favorite thing to say when I was like, so am I going to be okay speaking English? As far as you know.
I've only watched the show, so I was speculating for a bit. What if AI turns out to be someone on a mic, just trying to be this big bad AI?
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, like Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
They did shoehorn Wizard of Oz into this show too. Like we've seen them have the book, talk about the book. So saying,
it's not that's not impossible. Especially if you've got the kind of like the ideas that there's a super secret elite in Silo 1 that's controlling everything. That could be quite possible. Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be a super secret elite. Silo 1 always gets a super secret elite. And
they don't know about Silo 0.
Foiled again.
I'm sorry, I have to kill you all now.
I was curious if there were any societal parallels to our society that you noticed in Silo that you wanted to talk about.
Apart from the fact that it's obviously a dictatorship, it is such a departure from normal civilization because of the environment that they're living in. It's a huge level of control, and there's the fact that they are observed You've got this group of the Watchers 24/7, and most of these people have absolutely no idea that they're being observed. You're looking, baby, sort of Orwell's 1984, and they very, very tight rein on technology for reasons that's not always clear. Like you can't have a microscope.
Right,
What the heck is the problem with a microscope? I can see, you can't have assault rifles and grenades. Well, yeah. And they have no elevators.
Yeah. What's up with that?
Because it controls the way you can move between levels.
I mean, it keeps the down deep people down low and the up top people up top.
Yeah.
I think it's not even a metaphor. It's a literal, it's the haves and the have-nots. It's very literal.
And the playbook literally is, if there's a revolution, you blame engineering.
Yeah.
Page number 1.
Like Snowpiercer, where the back of the train, the front of the train, the top of the silo, the bottom of the silo.
Definitely. The quarters on the top look like pretty nice. The ones down, you can see they're basically the same, but they're crap.
And also, even though the lower levels are the ones that house the things that keep everybody alive, and like without them, there would be no silo. There would be no people left. But still got to keep them down there.
One of my favorite scenes was where the new guy who's been brought in to replace Sims and doing a very bad job of it comes in. And he said, "Well, the rebels have forced us back, but it was only up like 3 levels, and we're preparing to counterattack." And Bernard just looks and goes, "You were forced back 3 levels. You lost level 128. Yeah. What's on level 128? The farm. Yeah. You've lost our food supply, and it's no big deal."
Let me explain how Siege works again.
I think it's interesting to also point out, not only do they control any sort of access to technology, there's absolutely none of it. They also control their access to they don't know what birds are. Juliet and Solo have a conversation where they're talking about Romeo and Juliet, and in Juliet's, I can't remember which one is which, but either in Juliet's silo they die or they live, and in Solo's, in one silo, the story of Romeo and Juliet, they both die. In the other silo, they both live. There's even some sort of level of, we're going to tell you guys this story. We're going to tell you guys this story. If you pay attention to the design of Silo 17, the sets and everything, it's more artistic and not as and I don't think that is from just Solo, right? It was like that before their uprising. So I would want to live in that. I don't want to live in the cold, cleansed Silo 18. Give me the one that's like a little more artsy.
Yeah.
So it seems like they might even be controlling how the whole.
This is our very last question because we're actually running out of time here.
I was just going to comment that we were talking about the parallels to society, that we talk about the separation of the classes, but the difference in modern society is that there's this expectation of innovation, and that the people of privilege are allowed to innovate and create and advance the society. And here, there is not that option. You are prohibited from that. So, that level of power is taken away. So all the power actually is in the lower class, which is something that in our society, they cannot grab that power because the upper class have that power of innovation. But here, there isn't necessarily a power of innovation, so the lower class still maintains that power sometimes without realizing they have it, but sometimes wielding it very strongly.
Yeah. The problem is sometimes they realize that they have it, but they don't have the knowledge of what is actually like, what the real world like outside is actually like. So then they have these uprisings and people spill out of the silos and die.
And that's the thing.
Or they have the uprisings and they get the whole silo gets turned.
And this is why they control the technology and why they control the information so tightly, because anything new threatens to destabilize the system, and they can't afford any instability in the system. And we saw what happened with Silo 17. The word got round, and they thought, as the previous sheriff's wife Allison did, no, we can go outside. They're lying to us. It's perfectly breathable. No, it's not. And they open the doors and they run out and they get far enough that most of the 10,000 can get out and then they die.
Yeah, so that is, we're going to end it here because we're pretty much done here. I want to thank you all for joining us. Where can we find you rest of the con and on social media?
On social media, I'm on Facebook. I'm not an author. I don't have a podcast. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about this stuff. I'm a volunteer on the American Science Fiction and Fantasy track, which is over in the Marriott. You want to swing by and see us? I'm here for the rest of the day.
Don't steal our fans.
I can be found on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook, and maybe some other threads, whatever. At a Geek Saga is my username everywhere, or at geeksaga.com. My podcast is called the Geek Saga Podcast.
Actually, I think that's going to be it for me for this year.